All right, what's going on, everyone? I'm Rajan.
I'm Ralph, right?
All right, and so today we're coming to you. So today's like a little, it's gonna be a little different. So I literally just came out of a meeting where I saw some things that were quite alarming to me, and it all pretty much stems around protection. So let me stop doing the ums and the thinking and just get right to it. It's protection of your customers. So in small and medium-sized enterprises and even startup businesses, you always should be thinking about the protection of your customers and the protection of your information. Those are things that people really look past in the process of starting a business, but they're very, very important. And especially from a coach, consultant, advisor standpoint, you really, really, really need to think about what you are doing to better the future of your business, better the future of the environment, the industry that you're in, and really protect your customers. So I've said protection already probably like 7 times. So what does that mean? If you're a coach, consultant, advisor, or if you're in any form of leadership position where the words that come out of your mouth have a responsibility to someone else, you have to think about the advice that you're giving, the applications that you're communicating about, the various things that you are communicating through, how those things could actually negatively impact someone that you may not know about. And the reason why I say this is that I just was I had the I don't know, it's definitely not the well, I guess I'd say the pleasure just because I was invited, but I had the unfortunate pleasure of seeing a document that is pretty scary, to be honest. And from a coach, consultant, and advisory standpoint, when you protect, it's much deeper than just some verbiage that you may use in a mission or vision statement. It's literally looking and saying, okay, what are things that you're using within your business? What are things that your customers would expect from you? And it's protection of your customers and how they would be interacting with your business at any point. So one thing that I want to do to kind of change the vocal tone here is, Ralph, from a protection standpoint, what does that word protection, what does it mean to you? Like, help people understand what protection means to you.
I mean, that's a word that we've heard growing up. Every
Hmm.
like it's a common word, but there's so much depth in it. So, um, my standpoint, just looking at the word protection, it's honor.
Hmm.
So, and I think looking at the conversations you've had, and that just research things that we've looked at on our own as far as companies and stuff. It's understanding the honor of you have. It's a privilege to speak in the honor of your customer,
Right.
but it's also that honor system, that honest system that guides you, right?
Hmm.
One of the things that you said that you admire about me is my heart
Hmm.
and how I'm passionate about what I do because I'm usually led by my heart. You When you're looking to protect your customer, it's what's their best interest, what's in their best interest today
Hmm.
and tomorrow.
Hmm.
So what can protect them or what can shield them? So I'm also a big like comic guy, right? So or superheroes. So I consider it the Invisible Woman in Fantastic Four. She can always put up a shield before
Hmm.
anything can come and hit anybody that's part of the Fantastic Four. She could put a force field around them,
Hmm.
a shield around them. So to me, protection is not just moving in honesty or being honest, but it's honor. Honoring
Hmm.
your customer, but also being able to shield them from things that are literally coming. their way.
Yep.
And
It's
being
funny
able
because
to,
you make me think of a time in my life. So there was a time in my life when I was responsible for high-rise buildings. So, and when I say responsible, I was the director of security for multiple high-rise buildings. And being responsible for high-rise buildings, you have patrons that just are coming in and out to either dine at a restaurant in your building, or they're coming to meet with someone. You have tenants on every single floor of the building. You have engineers, you have janitorial staff, you have property management, and you have all walks of life coming in and out of your doors. And at any moment, you have to be prepared that a situation could go really, really, really bad. So in the security industry, that's what you train for. You train to always be paying attention to things. That's why there's surveillance cameras all over the place in high-rise buildings, because we're trying to like look and pay attention to certain things. And then as technology starting to increase, we started to be able to bring some algorithm-ish things into security cameras to make it easier to see. But I'll never ever forget that we were in a high-rise building. We were redesigning pretty much the security lobby. So like my lobby, and in the process of designing this, we had to. I of course wanted to make sure that I had everything that would future-proof the security operations for that high-rise building, also come in under budget, but also have an aesthetic appearance that would not distract patrons of that building from going in. So when talking about protection, it was my responsibility to protect people by making them understand that there's a level of safety associated with this building, but we're also mindful that we want you to be able to come and go and not feel us. So protection to me is very, very, very serious, because that's my background. That's what I've done. That's what's paid my bills the majority of my life. So how Ralph was talking about protection from his standpoint, that's for me. Like for me, I'm the type of person where I would grab someone and bring them close to me, and then I would put my back to whatever the elements were, because that was my responsibility. So now that I'm not in the security industry, I can't shake that, because of just, it's a part of who I am. So as I'm talking about coaches, consultants, advisors out there, as we're talking about just even small businesses that have customers, not to say that you have to have a security mindset, but you definitely want to have a protection mindset that allows you to be always thinking about what is in the best interest of my end user customer, the customer all the way at the end, and the perception they may have about what they think I'm doing, and then what I'm actually doing to protect them. So how are ways that you can do that? Well, we live in a very digital world, and anything that's digital, there's all of these terms and conditions that are associated with everything that you do. When you swipe your credit card, there's a trust factor between you and the merchant, that they're not going to steal your information, or they're going to actually protect your information on the way to going to the bank so that the transaction can go through. It's being mindful of the companies that you work with. It just, the moral of the story is be mindful of the companies that you work with. Be mindful of the fact that your information and your customers' information is protected. I'll give a perfect example. There are point of sale systems out there that small businesses have, that unfortunately small businesses, they may not think to look into it, but there are. I've seen them with my own hand, and there's not a customer that I have that has one that I'm aware of, that there are point of sale systems where literally every time you swipe the card, or you input customer data into your loyalty program, that information does not belong to you. It belongs to the company. So that's one basic way of bringing a for instance into real terms into your business. And you may be like, well, how in the world is that possible? When you hit that terms and condition buttons, or when that salesperson comes to bring you that point of sale solution, you accepted the terms, and those are the terms. So a lot of small businesses, there's so much going on that they don't look into those things. That's one thing that we do, and I'm not at all trying to do a sales pitch. That's not at all what this is about. What I'm saying is that if you are aware of other individuals that are aware of other things, you may want to reach out to them. You in any shape, form, or fashion, coaches, consultants. If you have people in your community that you feel are just trustworthy individuals, ask people. Maybe just go on a social media group and be like, hey, does anyone know if this is a good point of sales software or service that I actually will own my information? And you'll find out very, very quickly. You're going to be like, you may not want to use that. Or, oh, it is what it is. So I don't want to ramble on and on, but I just wanted to give a for instance of how protection, even at the small level, will be able to help you guys. In regards to medium-sized businesses, the protection is all in the customer data. It's all about customer data. It's you guys making sure that you have contingencies in place for the transactions and the documentations going back and forth between you, your constituents, and your end users. It's ensuring that you have self-auditing measures in place to ensure that your systems are working properly, so that if anything ever were to happen, your customer information is safe. You back up your information and you have it sitting on your own servers instead of just in some cloud that belongs to someone else.
Yeah.
So it's those kind of things. So, and again, I don't want to ramble, but I want you guys to understand the importance of protection, how to apply it into your life now, and things that you can do. Ralph, you got anything to add on that?
I mean, I think it's important to do your due diligence.
Yes.
Like, as you were talking, I just was thinking about a lot of times the way society, the way the world currently works. We live in a fast food generation.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about fast food is it isn't always the healthiest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we're quick to make these decisions based on, well, it's simple.
Yep.
This will alleviate this. This will alleviate that, whatever it may be.
And they play on that word simple. Whew.
Yes. And what simple does is, if you don't do your due diligence before you commit to simple, you might find yourself in a situation where, yes, you think you're doing what's best for your customer, but in all honesty, you're not.
You're
because it's not going to be on page 1. It's not going to be on, basically, it might not be on the first 10 pages.
You're right.
When you get to page 30, 40, and the print starts getting smaller and smaller, that's where you'll start to notice, like, wait a minute, yes, it's great financially up front. It's great up front, but on the back end is where you then not just make yourself vulnerable, but you make your customers vulnerable. And I think that's a key. I know for me, I've worn Fitbit, right? I have an Apple Watch. So in my mind, these are things that I'm constantly thinking about. Like, wait a minute, what would happen, like, before Fitbit sold to Google? That was my thought process. What are they doing with all this information? So you look at that, and then you have, and I'm not trying to bash any of these other companies, but then you have the DNAs, right? So you're willingly giving your DNA up to these companies, and the question is, all right, after you get the results that you were looking for, what is that company doing with that information?
Yep.
Not only that, I watched Gattaca. I don't know if you watched Gattaca.
I didn't.
But Gattaca is just a long story short. Gattaca is based in the future, where they could eliminate all potential problems by changing the DNA before the baby is born.
Got it.
Either way, the main character was one of those babies that it was a true baby, not in the form of their correction. So they were always seemed as if they could never be anything, and he ended up eventually breaking the system. But the whole purpose of me saying that was that information, you giving out your information, or you giving away your customers' information, it's a thin line between comfortability and accountability.
Whew.
Like, it's just a thin line.
Yes, it is. And what I will say is that this message isn't meant to be like heavy, but when you're talking about protection, it needs to have a level of heaviness, because especially as a small business. Well, especially as operating a business, not even just small business, because this message is for everyone. Um, you need to be mindful of these things. You
Hmm.
can't act. You can't be like, well, I don't want to deal with that, so I'm just not going to pay attention to it. You
Hmm.
can't do that and then expect your customers to consistently utilize your service or your product. You can't, because
Hmm.
what's going to happen is you're going to do that, and then eventually something is going to happen, and then
Hmm.
you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I remember that, but I didn't want to deal with it, and now it's a bigger problem.
Yep.
And especially think about the numbers. So many businesses fail. There's a lot of reasons why businesses fail. I really think that the kind of the overarching understanding of how businesses fail so consistently is, unfortunately, they don't know what they don't know,
Hmm.
or they're not willing to look at everything that's going on in their business and pay attention to it.
One.
That's a very bold thing to say, but I want to bring honesty to the business world so that they understand what to look for. You got to really make sure you're paying attention to these things. When you're
One of
starting a business, you're in a situation where you're able to actually have everything lined out and be able to kind of see, like, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this. Do yourself a favor and be like, okay, what does this really look like behind the scene? What does this really look like behind the scene?
Yes. One of those things that I was gonna that you just sparked my mind, maybe think a little bit more is where this not just the simplicity, but a lot of businesses get caught up in the what's now.
Yeah, yeah.
What
Well,
what
yeah,
happened?
it's
What
shiny.
happened? Yeah, what? Oh, so because me and you talked about the marketing aspect last week,
Hmm.
right? So they're oh, well, this person did this, and this is the result that they got, and not only did they get this result, they did this. Well, I'm going to incorporate what they did into my business, and then you're going to wonder why it's not working. So, a lot of businesses fail because it's monkey see, monkey do.
Yep.
Then you have people in other positions or other situations that are feeding them bad information without giving
Horrible
them the full
information.
detail because
Yep.
they're like, well, it only cost me this much. Yeah, right now it's going to
Yeah.
cost you this much, but down the road, this is what it's really going to cost you. And because this person is trying to get that quick sale, they're going to tell you, oh, it's simply, for instance, it's simply just $100. Well,
Yep.
I'm just because if I'm trying to get a sale, yeah, it's simply $100 now, but down the line, because you're going to keep coming to me. And then as you keep coming to me, I'm going to keep, all right, what else you have? What else you have? What else you have? So we have to then be mindful, and it's better to over communicate with your customer than it
Hmm.
is to under communicate. Always be talking, always give them the information. It's okay if you have to repeat the information over and over again, but if you are true to your customer, loyal to your customer, honest to your customer, and trying to protect your customer,
Hmm.
having those conversations are important. For
Hmm.
example, like I used to be in sales. The one thing that I prided myself on in sales and in the times that I was in sales was the return rate and
Hmm.
how low it was. And I did it in several different companies. So for me, it was, listen, if you're my customer, I'm going to over communicate everything.
Hmm.
I have to over communicate everything because the one thing I don't want you to do is leave and you not feel comfortable or feel secure in your purchase.
Hmm.
So yes, it come. You ask all the questions, and on the close at the register, listen. If I didn't touch base, here. If you have any other questions you didn't think about, here. Always have that open door. Always
Hmm.
be willing to have that line of communication so they know. Listen, even if things don't look or don't seem the way that you think they do on this level,
Hmm.
let's go to that next level. So if you're
Hmm.
buying or if your company or your customers at this level, you should be here and be willing to communicate at this level to bring them
Hmm.
to your level. And
Hmm.
then once you get there, what's next? What's
Mm-hmm.
next? Because if you're engulfed and you're doing what's best for your customer and you're trying to protect your customer, you're going to know or see the chips before they fall.
That's right. And that's the protection that we're talking about throughout this entire message is there's various forms of protection, and it all fits together. You can't ignore it. So one of the things that, as Ralph was talking, I wrote down. So in the medium enterprise and even small, a little bit of small, but definitely medium enterprise, there's a lot of communication around CAC, cost of acquisition. So small businesses, you may not understand that quite yet, but it's something that it'll be good for you to understand those terminologies because as your business grows, it's all about CAC. It's the cost of acquisition. Now, I wrote down cost of losing a customer. So clock. So I think I'm gonna call this CAC versus clock.
Mhm.
But I'm not even aware. And I'll look. We'll look together.
Mhm.
But I want to see like what documentation exists around putting a formula around the cost of losing a customer compared to all of the numbers that show you the cost to acquire a customer. So
Mhm.
when we're talking about protection, it's these are the type of things that we need to be focusing on is that understanding of CAC versus clock,
Mhm.
and really being able to look at those two and understand you got to protect your customers. You got to bring everything to them. You got to be honest with them. You got to make sure they're aware of certain things so that all really falls under the protection umbrella.
Yes. So, I mean, we mentioned, and just to piggyback off that, we mentioned, like I said, I mentioned that I was in sales. So, and the reason why I'm bringing that back up is that communication. And you said cost of losing a customer. What I was selling, I knew the cost of losing that customer
Mm-hmm.
because that we brought in. I know me and my team, we brought in close to $5 million worth of business
Mm-hmm.
over the course of 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So for 2 years, I know how much each customer is bringing that business,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So if that customer is gone, so this is
Yep.
the thing. The first 2 years is at a discounted rate.
You're right. Right.
So that true cost, so there's the true cost and there's that discounted rate cost. So the discounted rate is for the first 2 years. The true cost hits after year two.
Yep.
So you're able to look, and then if we did them wrong, if the company I was with did them wrong, you could lose that customer for a lifetime.
You're right.
So every year, like I said, every year after that discounted cost is the true value of that customer yearly.
Yep.
But how good and how well you keep and you can keep your customer happy
Mm-hmm.
longevity wise, that's the true cost. So how long do you
Mm-hmm.
want to be in business? Well, the
Mm-hmm.
business I was in was around for 30, 40 years before I even got there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's think, do you want to keep your customer for 5 years? Do you want to keep your customers for 6 months? Or do you want to keep your customer for a long time to the point where your customer doesn't have to, like, you don't have to worry about your customer? I can
Yep.
tell you this, I've been with the same provider, phone provider, and I've been with the same insurance company for over a decade.
Right.
Why?
Yep.
Because every question that I've had, they answered. I already know what's good and what's bad about them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because my own research,
Yep.
and I'm not afraid to ask the questions. And if and I know when they're lying to me.
Yep.
I'm not asking. I don't ask them for any type of reward because I've
Right.
been
Right.
longer, right? It's like if you
Whew,
live in an apartment
that was a big
complex.
one there. That was a big one, and I'm going to cut in here
Mhm.
because in this fast food world, kind of piggybacking on the words that you said, everybody wants everything now. The other thing is that they also want there's like this almost this feeling of like, well, you're just going to provide me perks, and it's like, no, like maybe we need to go pick up more customers,
Right.
and that makes sense because you may want to provide those. Because perfect example, especially in the cell phone game, the new customers are the ones that get the buy one get one frees. They get the BOGOs. They get all the really good deals. Where the existing customers are the one where it's like, we already got your business.
Mhm.
But do you know how good of a service you have to provide to be able to say, existing customers, we don't really have a good, you already got your phone, you're good. We'll do some trade-in type stuff with you. We're going after these new customers, and you're like, yeah, I get it, no problem. I'm happy with what I have. Like that
It says a lot.
that says a lot.
It says a lot, and I mean, to touch on, if we want to go cell phone, like I've had almost every single one of them,
Right.
and customer service was huge for me.
Yep.
Now, even though customer service was huge for me, a lot of people have had problems with customer service with the company I'm with.
Mhm.
I've never had a problem with them. I've had problems with the other ones.
Mhm.
So and so I'm able, for me, I'm like, well, I've already experienced it. Not only did I experience it, and then we go with phones. I've
Yeah.
had all the different type of phones before I got to the phone that I had. So now I'm like, I'm good there. Like, so I think like what people don't understand, it's not even about comfortability,
No.
because you do have those customers that all they want is perks. So yes,
Right.
I can guarantee you that every 2 years they're going to drop this service, or they're going to drop this, and they're going to
Mhm.
go, depending on how long, your perks are. And it's
Yep.
okay. It's okay, because they're telling you who they are,
Yeah. It's just
but
like, that's the
those
game
aren't
you guys want to play.
but those aren't the customers you're looking for.
That
Those
is
aren't the
correct.
customers you want to
Whew.
bring into the fold. Those aren't the customers that, even if you go with the 80/20 rule, those aren't the customers that you're really trying to protect, right? Because
Mhm.
I mean, you're trying to protect them, but in a sense, they're going to leave regardless of whatever your
Right.
services are, and no matter the value, they're going to leave.
Yep.
Now
You
you
just make
focus.
sure while you have them that you are protecting them. You're really looking out for their best interest. So at least they just know, like, okay, I'm, yeah, like, you even know I'm switching, or I'm going somewhere else, because this was big in the
Yeah.
security bidding world.
Hmm.
So there were customers that you knew
Hmm.
every 3 years they're going to bid out their security contract. It is what it is. So every 3 years there's a different company going into that bad boy to do something for that customer. So like when we would win those contracts, it was we were happy, but this is where the lack of understanding of protection comes in, because then there would be this bigotry to say, I don't know if that's the right word, but there would be this what's the word I want to use? This
Stigma.
this what did you say?
Stigma.
He's not stigma, but there would be this overarching feeling of overconfidence. That's the word I was looking for.
Hmm.
That, well, we're so good that they're not going to do that with us.
Mm.
And then 3 years comes around, yeah, they did it to us. You know what I mean? So it's like, so,
And that was the thing too, because we, at some point, you're aware, and this is why it's important to ask questions. This is why it's important to ask questions, because I know, like I said, when I was in sales and I was asking questions, but I was over giving I was giving my customer more than enough information. I know when if I was selling on price, I know that they were going to call my competitor when I walked out the door.
yep.
So I'm not. I mean, yes. Do I want to sell them? Yes, of course I want to sell them. But I was also honest with them. I said, listen, if all you're looking for is price wars, listen, I'm gonna help you lower your current. I'm gonna help you. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna sign you up. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not going to, because I'm not going to sign you up just so 2 days later you can cancel. I
Yep.
said that's
So,
wasting
and
your
it's so
time,
funny because,
and
like,
that's
as
wasting
you're
my time.
saying that, because I want to make sure people understand, like, okay, like, you guys are now talking about customer service, but it is customer service, but it's also protection of your brand, a protection of who you are. So again, like, this is where, like, I want to make sure the people that watch this vlog, they're like, okay, like, you started with protection, you guys are talking about customer service, and you're kind of going on this customer service route. But yes, but even in customer service, there's a protection. You have to protect your customers. You
Yes,
need to
because your
protect your end
customer.
customers, but you also need to protect your brand.
Yes. Yes, and that's super important because what people don't understand is that word of mouth is the best and worst type of marketing that you can receive.
Yep. Yep.
So understanding that relationship and being willing to walk away from a sale, being willing to walk away from a customer because yes, you can provide for them what they need, but you know that they're not really in it for what you're trying to give them. It's
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Like it is okay because yeah, we can chase the sale and think, oh well, it's all about the money. Well, it's not. It's literally all about your brand and your customer. How can your brand help your customer? If your
Mhm.
brand isn't helping your customer because your customer isn't really aligned with what your brand brings, your brand is just a convenience in the moment. Your brand is
Yep.
going to be gone in a moment.
Yep.
So understand quality of customer is just as important as quality of service.
Yep.
So be willing to
All of
walk
it
away.
needs protection.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just like, and I don't want to go too long because it would be a long, very, very long vlog. But yeah, we see, but you can hear like this is a subject that we could seriously, we may even do like a couple of series just on protection because there's so much surrounding protection. And with the small businesses out there, there's a lack of knowledge around the words of protection because there's so much focus on marketing. There's so much focus on sales. Anyone that looks at this, I beg of you, if you're not, join a Facebook, LinkedIn group for anything that has anything to do with small business. And with two flips of your finger on the screen, you are going to be inundated with so many sales pitches and so many marketing pitches. So again, like that's the problem in our society right now is that it's a very marketing heavy society and then it's a very salesy society. Be the one to realize like, okay, how many of these people are actually doing something
Hmm.
compared to, huh, maybe there's some groups or maybe there's some places where either there's a value add or maybe I joined something that's not directly with the title small business. Maybe I join things that have like talks about protection or things of that nature or systems processes, those type of things where like real meat of the business is taking place.
Proper research.
They'll probably still have sales and marketing there, but it's not going to be with every two swipes of your finger.
And because I know we can go on to this all day. So
Right.
like something stuck out to me when you said that because it's like if you know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
if you know what your brand stands for, you will not necessarily be in those places to sell.
That's right. That's right.
Those people that do the mass, I'm gonna post here, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Ask them how much time they put into these posts
You're right.
weekly
You're right.
and what's the rate of return on that? What's the
You're
RO,
right.
what's the ROR? Right? Because
You're
at the
right.
end of the day, if you spend 4 to 5 hours on Facebook, chances are it's not just for business.
You're
It's
right.
going to be a little bit of personal too, because it's Facebook,
Yep. It's
right?
gonna happen.
So now with those 4 or 5 hours, you're doing these posts. How often are these posts, or how often are you saying these things? Are people actually replying to you?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not a voice, and you're not a voice. You're randomly just throwing a flare out there, hoping that
Right.
somebody catches it.
Yep.
So I'm not saying this to be like, oh well, I'm almighty in this, but it's
No. It's
understanding
true.
that we are oversaturated with ads. We are oversaturated, like we are oversaturated. We are to the point where ads are oversaturated,
Mm-hmm.
right? We are oversaturated with opportunities, right? Or quick schemes. We're
Yep.
oversaturated with that. So we
Yep.
also have now your potential customers, for 9 times out of 10, by the time they get to you, they already don't trust.
You're right. Right. They got a level of fear. They've already dealt with all this other stuff. Like yeah, like these. It's so sad. And it's what I think we're going to spend more time on this because it's so important for small businesses is that protection. Like it's so crazy. Like I think we're tapping into something here where I think we're going to probably even make a separate series on it because like anyone that oversaturates their brand you then have to think about, is there really any business behind all of this saturation? Like, can somebody really deliver on that when they're marketing so heavy in as many groups as they possibly can? Like, you got to think about these things.
And I think it needs to be more strategic. There's nothing wrong with oversaturating because you
Mhm.
have guys like Gary Vee, you have guys like Eric Thomas, but how they do it,
Well,
they're
yeah,
not
yeah, that's
oversaturating in all these different arenas. No,
right,
I'm they're intentional in where they're being saturated,
right.
but they're
Yeah,
satur into
good
the
point.
saturation. It's targeted.
Right.
So
It's a very direct, clear message compared to somebody in a Facebook group where someone's talking about, they need help with trying to figure out where to put a sticker, and then somebody comes in, you want my juice program, like,
yes, I got the
really?
yeah, and I saw and how many pounds are you trying to lose? Da, da, da. And
Right.
it's not to
Right.
one
I can help
person.
you
Like
lose weight, or
it's a
like Bitcoin. It's like, come on,
like
people.
there are literally health groups that you can go to. And here's the thing with those groups. When you get to those niched groups, there are rules. There is no selling.
That's
There's
right.
only communicating.
That's
This is
right.
how you build relationships. This is how you build
That's
your
right.
network. If you do it the right way, it's not about getting the sale as much as it's about getting your name out there.
Yep.
Not just getting your name. How you get your name out there? Well, if you do wrong by one customer, 10 people are gonna know about bad about your customer. If you do, I mean, bad about your customer's experience. If you do right about your customer, only 2 people are gonna know.
Mm-hmm.
You see the difference in numbers, and because you talked about cost of a lost customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
10 to 2.
Yep.
10 to
Yep.
2.
Yep. Love it. Love it. And we're going to end on that note. We'll see y'all next week.
All right, y'all be good.